And the prize goes to James.
Yes! He's done it again! Well, that was very exciting to see, even though that is possibly one of the most deadpan deliveries of a book award announcement that I've ever seen. But yes, so great to see James win yet another award. And yes, of course, this is the book that everyone was expecting would win the Pulitzer Prize, and now it has. But when there's a book of such high quality, it just doesn't make sense to give the award to anyone else, I think. And now this is one of the few books to have won both the Pulitzer Prize and the National Book Award, two of the biggest literary awards in America. There's very few books that have done this before. I know most recently there's been Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad. There was also way back a Fable by William Faulkner, won both of these awards, and also The Shipping News by E.N.E. Proulx, and The Color Purple by Alice Walker. So yeah, I think there's only several books that have done that, but I think James definitely deserves to be amongst those ranks. And this was a book, just for me personally, that it absolutely was one of the top books that I read last year, that I enjoyed both on a story level, even though it is recounting some of the events of the adventures of Huckleberry Finn from Jim's perspective, and we know this story already. There are a number of scenes which Huck isn't involved with, and so we see these from Jim's perspective, and the plot takes a sort of turn from what Twain did at the end of his novel, so there are definitely some surprises on that, but just seeing the entire story from Jim's perspective and his passion and love for books. I mean, there are scenes when books get soaked in the river, and he's desperately trying to dry them out, and his passion for reading, whenever he can get a private moment of reading while not being observed, is so precious to him. And just getting a pencil in order to write his own story, how difficult that is, and how precious it is to be able to express ourselves and our own voice through writing. I think it really holds up how important that is, and I think that's a message that still continues to be important for us, but also as a way of reading and considering literature in general, that all stories come from a subjective point of view, and there are certain characters that we may dismiss or not think of their larger complexity, like in Twain's classic of Huckleberry Finn, that the character of Jim, he's a very good-hearted character, but also quite simplistic and the butt of the joke, and this is how he is portrayed in that novel. But Everett, rather than criticizing or revising Twain's story, just shows it from a different point of view to make the reader consider how there are probably aspects of this character's life that you might not have considered when reading Twain's novel. And so to see it from Jim's perspective, that he was not only the butt of the joke, but that he was playing along with Huck and Tom when they were kind of playing pranks on him. And this is shown at the very beginning of the novel, and this sort of sets us up as to see things from a radically new perspective. And I think this we can take this message to all of the literature that we read, of thinking much more carefully about the characters we read about, and what stories aren't we being told, and what aspects of certain characters' perspectives aren't we being given. And I think this is so important, especially when considering classics. I mean, often, we think about how there are many classic works of literature that are deemed problematic now, and but rather than censoring them or changing them, like in the novel The Sellout by Paul Beatty, he has a whole scene in that book where characters are contemplating revising the adventures of Huckleberry Finn to change the language which is used in it, the offensive language language in it, but also the way that the characters are portrayed, and this is given a kind of satirical bent on in Paul Beatty's book, and Everett takes that idea and builds it into a whole novel and gives a whole new spin on it, and also the way that Jim, there are some sections of this when he has these kind of dreamlike conversations with philosophers of the Enlightenment and takes them to task for the way in which they discuss freedom in their philosophy. And Jim, as an individual, as a slave in America, that he has a very different perspective on this. And so I think this novel is just so clever on multiple levels, and has resonance and meaning far beyond its immediate story, and giving a new take on this American classic. So I think is definitely worthy of this award for so many reasons. Now, of course, there are other books on the shortlist that was announced for the Pulitzer for fiction. Although I do want to highlight, I was so happy to see Danez Smith for their most recent collection of poetry, which I haven't read yet, but I loved their collection, Don't Call Me Dead, so much. Such a powerful book of poetry. I mean, I'm not someone that reads all that much poetry, but I appreciated this so much, and I'm really looking forward to reading this new collection, Bluff, as well. However, the winner of the poetry category was New and Selected Poems by Marie Howe, which are poems looking at aspects of modern experience and loneliness and mortality. And I've not read anything by this author before, so I'll be keen to check out this collection as well. Now, there were also 4 books in total shortlisted for the fiction category, which is quite unusual because typically the Pulitzer only shortlists 3 books in total, but you never know what you are going to get with the Pulitzer Prizes. And so the other books that were shortlisted for this category, there was Headshot by Rita Bullwinkel, which also I was so happy to see honored in this way, because that's a book that really took me by surprise. I mean, it's about the sport of boxing, which is something that I typically wouldn't be all that interested in reading about, but the way that it portrays the lives of these 8 different young women who are all engaged in this small regional female boxing competition, and as they go head to head against each other, we get pieces of their lives and their past and their ambitions, but also of their futures. And so the structure of this narrative is so creative and unique, and gives such like insight into these different characters' lives, but is also quite tense and made me wonder who is actually going to win this competition. But as a way of portraying different forms of young adulthood and ambition in America today, I think it is a really significant novel. And there's also Mice 1961 by Stacey Levine, which I don't think too many readers have heard of before this award. I certainly hadn't heard of it before, but it sounds like a really interesting novel set in the Cold War in America, in following 2 half sisters who are orphaned, and it's told from the point of view of their housekeeper, and how all of these characters are kind of removed from the larger community around them in Florida, and especially one sister who is nicknamed Mice because she is an albino and is frequently teased because of this. And so how these characters are sort of outsiders, and how this culminates in a dramatic incident in a day of their lives. And there's also The Unicorn Woman by Gayl Jones, which I haven't read yet, but I've been really keen to read because Gayl Jones is such a fascinating author. So this story follows a Black former soldier who has returned from World War II and Europe to the segregated American South, and how he sees a woman at a circus who's dubbed the Unicorn Woman, and how she becomes a kind of ideal for him. So it follows his romantic yearnings and his yearnings to build a larger life for himself. And so Gayl Jones, she first came to prominence in 1975 when she published the novel Corregidora, and this is absolutely an American classic. I think it's such a powerful book. I mean, Toni Morrison was her editor, and the way it portrays the protagonist's experience in this in such a vivid way, I think is so incredible. So I was totally blown away when I first read this novel. And Gayl Jones continued to publish a number of books over the next couple of decades, but then she disappeared for a long time, and she's famously quite a recluse, and so she published a novel called Mosquito in the late 90s, but then just completely disappeared for a long time, and over 20 years later, then she came back with her novel Paul Mary's. This was just a few years ago, and this is such an epic novel following a community of Black former slaves in Brazil, and the way it portrays this experience I thought was so powerful, and this was one of my favorite books that I'd read in the year that it came out, and since then she's continued publishing a number of other novels, including The Unicorn Woman now, and has been given a lot of prize nods over time. And so yeah, this was just so exciting to see, and such an interesting collection of books to be listed for this category, and also for the judges for this category. It was really exciting to see Merv Emery, who's a really great critic, chairing this award, and also Leila Lalami, whose novel The Dream Hotel I just read recently, in which I think is so powerful and made me so tense, but also the way this presents so many things that I think we really need to think about a lot more closely now. So that was really exciting to see, but also Jonathan Lethem and Brian Washington, who is also a really great writer. So yeah, what a really exciting result. And yeah, I'm so happy for James. And of course, the awards nominations for Percival Everett aren't ending. They're continuing, because this is also currently shortlisted for the Dublin Literary Award, and I'm going to be going to that ceremony in a couple weeks' time. And this is a much more lucrative award. The winner of the Pulitzer Prize only gets $15,000, which is still, of course, yes, quite a lot of money. But the winner of the Dublin Literary Award gets 100,000 euros, and so of course it's really not all about the money, but you know, it's this is a kind of consideration as well, and I'll be really excited to see if this or one of the other great books that have been shortlisted for the Dublin Literary Award, what wins that prize. So I'll take you along on that journey, and I'm really looking forward to that. But I would love to know, what do you think about the winner and the shortlist for this year's Pulitzer Prize for fiction? I mean, I know maybe it would be better to give some other books some attention, since James has got so much attention, but honestly, yes, I can't imagine, like, in 20 years' time looking back, and if this hadn't won the award, and thinking, like, well, what were they thinking? And as such a better result from last year's winner of the Pulitzer Prize, I was so relieved to see a book that I actually loved and I think was deserving of this award actually get it. But let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching me geek on about this, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.